Hey guys, regardless what you're building, there's a lot of cool tips, tricks, and just some normal everyday guidance. I hope you stick around to watch it all. And also we used some nylon inserts. They were placed right here behind those cowling screws. We can take that out. I'll show you where those are. So the flat part is on the inside. It just gives a better base, and then I CA glued them in. So this thing is sitting this way with that flat part on the back side of that cowl. So it's a nice fit there and gives it some support. And the next step, we're going to move on to getting the canopy done. So we're going to go ahead and take some rubbing alcohol. We're going to wipe off the whole inside of this canopy, so that way there is no fingerprints on the inside of there that are going to show through later. We're going to use our good old friend canopy glue to attach that thing and adhere it, maybe a screw or two, but we'll see how that fares out. And on the inside, we're going to go ahead and put Mr. Pilot. I've drilled a couple holes in the bottom side, and that's just there simply because I want that epoxy to kind of wick through the holes and not be a flat to flat. That way it helps to keep him in over time. Again, this is the first Seagull's model Pilot. He's pretty light that I actually like. Most of the time I don't use them. And then we have our front dash panel, which I did have to trim just a little bit in order to get that a nice fit in there. So we will epoxy that in. And then we also have flying around here somewhere our back one. And what I did on this one, you can see that black edge at the top. I actually took a paint pen and painted that because where it sits here, you saw that wood look from the top and I didn't like it. So just a quick run of black tape over there. But anyway, we're using non-important stuff, if you will. 5-minute Hydrol epoxy. We're going to get all that stuff glued in. Let's go. Everybody's in place, glued in, and canopy glue's installed. And we're just using some pressure on this all the way across the bottom and some weights on the top until that canopy glue dries for tomorrow. And then we'll do the final trimming up of all the edges all the way around. But that was pretty quick and easy. Yes, our poot pipe is here. So check it out. There it is. That is the canister that's going to be going in the extra. This is a 50mm drop header. We have our connection pipe here. So kind of just warm that up a little bit, put that over and install the clamps, 25mm inlet. And then also, so all this is from Desert Aircraft. I also picked up 2 of the mounts for the inside. And basically, they're just going to have to get glued into place. But they are 60mm to match the canister, which will be a much better fit. Our canopy is done. And that turned out really good overnight. Let that glue dry. So what we have to do is now just trim up those edges and get that thing in there for a perfect fit. Otherwise, on the front of the plane, when it comes down to this exhaust, we are simply going to just take an X-Acto knife and we are just going to pressure on those pre-cut spots right there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these things. And we're just going to pressure on those and then we'll hit that knockout. And that'll give room for my header drop to come into here and we'll start to get things put together and assembled. But getting closer by the day, closer by the minute, back to work. All right, what do you guys say that we make do of all of this mess that's in here? So, Rex 10 receiver kind of laid out where I want to put that, have an idea for antennas. My harness now that goes back to the elevators, we're going to wrap that in that flexible convolute, if you will, and I know how I'm going to route this thing now so it's not interfering with wing panels coming in and out. We have our optical kill, and everything's just kind of rough wired in. I like to rough wire things in and make sure that everything is kind of run, works, and is dialed in before I start making final connections, fittings, eliminating stuff, making the right harnesses. But it also helps to try and figure out a rough point for balance for batteries as well. And something here I want to bring up for you guys. When you run gassers, all right, please always make sure that you have some type of safety shutoff for these things. I was at a recent event and saw multiple gas planes, and I have never seen this in my life, and I never thought I would, and I saw it all, 2 of them in the same day. And what happened is something failed, and these big planes were stuck at wide open throttle in the air until they ran out of fuel because they had no way to shut them off. That should be something that really never happens. So make sure you're using an optical kill switch, you're using a choke that you can shut the plane off, fail safes, anything that you can do to make these things safer and have backup systems or redundancy is going to be in your favor, trust me. So we're going to start to tidy this stuff up. I'm going to make a few more connections here, and then we're going to get into using our drill jig, and we're going to drill some holes in this beautiful Carbon Falcon spinner and spinner back plate, this thing, and then we're also going to drill our holes in the prop. Once that stuff is on there, we're going to go ahead and get some fuel in this baby, make sure everything works, fire it up, tune it, and then we'll put the cowl on and maybe some finishing touches here pretty quickly. So I like to make my wiring as clean as possible, and I was just recently at an event this weekend down in Westminster. The Aero Modelers over there, great club, had a great time, and we talked about a lot of this stuff. And one of the things that I like to do before we cut into the time lapse is just briefly give you guys, you know, just a little hint here. The cleaner and the more tidy all your wiring is, the less likely you are to have rubs, failures, that type of stuff. So I like to make all the harnesses just as long as need be, with a little bit of flex for movement, but not too much. Make sure I have redundant backup systems, and just make sure everything is kind of neat and tidy and not bouncing around. That prevents failures, that prevents shorts, that prevents wires breaking, and that prevents crashes. So spend the time, tidy this stuff up, and make sure it's right. But anyway, time lapse, let's get to work. See the bag? DA50. So I have myself a center bit, and I have myself the prop bolt bits. Same one that's in there. This is the only place I ever use these drill bits. They never get used for anything else. I don't want the drill bits walking around or moving and causing me issues. So dedicated drill bits. All right, plane is outside, plane is anchored. Again, we're just trying to make sure that all of our setup is right, all of our electronics work, and do a quick engine tune before we go a whole lot further with the wiring. There we are, anchored in the back. Let's get some fuel in this. Perfect. It starts, it runs, we're good. Let's throw some wings on it and grab a quick CG. Now the CG recommendation on this is 90 to 120 millimeters from the tip of the wing. I'm gonna start about 95. I'm gonna use some little felt things here for markers at the field and simply place them in front of my CG machine tool, which works rather nice for this, if I can get the sticky thing to not stick on my fingers. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this on here and I'm going to place that thing right there on that spot. We're going to do the same on the other side, and then we're going to check the balance. All right, guys, you can see battery placement right there. So we're going to have to move the batteries a good bit forward on the plane, maybe even go with some bigger batteries, which I do have, more towards the front to achieve the right balance. So not bad. That gives me an idea where I need to wind up, and it needs to be a good bit front on this plane. Now, obviously, we're balancing this with an empty tank of fuel. So on a fuel tank, a full tank, that's going to change things for us quite a bit. It'd be nice to have that fuel tank right over to CG marks, but on this model, that's just the way it is. I guess I can make mounts and change around the whole inside of this thing, but I'm choosing not to do that. So let's try and find some batteries to put up front. We're back down into the layer. The walk outside was a success. The DA popped right over, fired right up. We were able to get that idle set. We know everything starts and runs. I know all my telemetry works. So what do we got going on inside? Here we have our RPM sensor. We have temperature sensors, 2 of them, one down here at the base of the cylinder head, another one for cylinder head temperature. So we got all those wires, RPM, we have our ignition kill, we have our receiver. We still have yet to put in our 900 megahertz backup, and we have some of these control surface wires. All this stuff needs cleaned up, tidied up. So that's really all we have left. So let's get to it, and let's get to tidying things, make them look pretty. All right, guys, I think we're pretty much well done with the inside of the plane. So we needed a little bit of an exhaust extension down there. That is installed. I'm using the Hansen polarized connectors here for the ailerons. So they're in place. Everything is color coded, so I know which one is which. The polarized connectors, though, he doesn't offer those, not that I'm aware of, in different colors. So we're just going to paint dot this to the matching aileron for the wing as it comes through the side. And basically these connectors, they clip together, so that way you don't have to use safety locks or anything else, and then it's just latch and unlatch. We have our 900 megahertz receiver installed, our ignition kill, all right, and then we have our redundant battery backup system. We have our magnetic on-off fail switch assembly, our armed light for the ignition. We have placement of both our 2-cell LiPos up here, our 7.4 for primary and backup. We have our ignition module mounted there on the side, and up here you can see we have our temp sensor and RPM sensor mounted forward of the fuel tank. So RPM pickup and stuff is up here. We have everything set up and kind of ready for the cowl install. So 2 things I want to do here on the cowl of this engine. So number one, I'm going to clean up these edges here on this air inlet, and then I actually got some screen. Sorry, I had to go find it. So this is just aluminum screen repair mesh, and we are just going to put that on the inside. Now for this little piece right here, I could see this thing cracking and breaking. I am going to lay a little bit of carbon fiber weave right through the back side of that to strengthen that up a little bit, and might not have to if I cut that screen right. Maybe I can just lay some epoxy over there for strength. We'll have to see how that fares out, but we're going to go ahead and strengthen that up a little bit. We're going to put the mesh in there, and then we are ready to final install our prop. We're going to make sure we put lock bolts on those nuts, a little bit of blue Loctite, and then we're going to mount our spinner but otherwise I think we're in pretty good shape here. Our antennas are mounted for our 900. You can see one right there. The other one is right here under that side. And then the yellow tubing right there is my primary 2.4. So we have one going at completely L'd directions. But anyway, let's get to cutting up this cowl a little bit more. Before we install the cowl, we're going to have to make one more hole in the side of it, and that is going to be for our adjustment screws. Now, the way we do this is we put a laser on a stand, leave the airplane the way it is. The laser will shine right here on the screws, and what we're going to do is then put the cowl on without disturbing anything, and then once we put in the side screws and it's held into place, the laser will still shine on the cowl, and we know exactly where to put that hole. So let's get to it. All right, so cowl's mounted, spinner's mounted. There's what our engine looks like, nice and clean. Love everything about it. Canopy fits on there a little tight. I'm assuming as that wood kind of compresses here around the cowl that, you know, that thing will become easier to get on and off. Again, they give you little screws there. I still think I'm going to do something quick release with that. We'll see. For now, I just might use the screws until the maiden's done. But otherwise, we're about ready to go here. Control system is in, so the only thing we have to do yet is set up the throws and make sure our balance is spot on. If I have any gripes, right here it is. Out of this whole kit, this is my gripe. So this is no good because I don't want the wing and the dowels to be taking all of that pressure, especially if you're going to huck it around a little bit. You know, I'm not a major 3D guy. I don't even know if I'm a minor 3D guy, but basically what's going to happen is all the stress is going to transfer onto the dowels and the wing bolts, and I don't want that. So the way that you can do this is obviously, because this fits really good into the wings. No problem in the wings, it's just in here. A couple things that we can do here. A, you can cut it out and you can get something that's tighter fit, or we can go ahead and shim this, and by shimming it we're just going to use some light tape in the center. So I'm going to experiment with that and see what we can get, but otherwise you know, that's my only complaint really on the plane. Small things throughout the finish that I wish, as I got more time looking over the model, that, you know, weren't there. But overall, like I said, I can't cover this well. So I really got not a whole lot to complain about. I still like the canopy, the pilots, the cockpits, the overall fit, finish, the look. We're getting really close here to being able to do a maiden on this thing. But let's see if we can do something with this wing tube. All right, update on the wing tube. So that was a pretty quick fix. You could see nice and sturdy. And if I can pull this thing out here, all we did was we wrapped it with some aluminum tape there. So that shouldn't do it. I mean, that's all we need, is just something to take up some space and keep that tension while the wings get bolted in there. Otherwise, we'll see you for the next adventure, which is going to be setting the throws and balance. One of the last steps is going to be to install the side force generators. They want you to use these M4x15 Allen head screws. They want you to put a washer, and then they show a piece of fuel tubing, but they gave you all of these O-rings to use, so that would do the same thing. So you have washer, O-ring, washer. You would go ahead and install that in there. Now that makes it easy to take off the side force generators. That's good for doing knife edge maneuvers, things like that, give you a little bit more side stability. But if you take these out, then you're going to have washers falling off. So you could also install a very tiny washer here, rubber washer on the inside, or rubber O-ring, I should say. What I've opted to do is to dress this thing up a little bit. We're using some anodized parts, a stainless M4, and then I used my O-ring here on the inside. So that way I don't have to worry about losing the washers, and everything here will still tighten up and then stay snug for me. And if I need to for transport, that still will come off pretty easily. So very easy install. One of the things that I will recommend, please make sure that you check to make sure there's no glue in the inside of the blind nuts. Do not force those screws in. Mine had some glue in there. Make sure you run something down in there and clean them up. If you have a metric 4 tap, that's advisable, so you can clean up the threads on those blind nuts. Otherwise, you're going to push the blind nut out down into the wing, and then you're going to have to come up with another alternative sensitive in order to get these things on. So make sure you check yours. I ran a 3.5 mil drill bit through mine and then cleaned up the threads. All right, so the downside to digital servos, they are a tad bit noisy, but it's time to set all the throws on this thing. I'm not going to go through the time lapse of me sitting here messing around with the radio. But here's one of the important things. If you want to have a smooth flying plane, especially with these big surfaces, independent elevator servos, these things have to be matched up together, and that's tough to eyeball. So when I'm using degrees on this, I'm going to use all the factory recommendations. On low rates, I'm going to fly 20% expo to soften. On high rates, I'm going to be about 60 to 65 to soften those controls. But you need to make sure everything is fluent and matched. So I use, and some people don't like it and some do, but I use match rods. So with all that weight on the elevators, they're kind of chiming here a little bit. And then what I'll do is watch those as I go throughout that travel range to make sure that everything matches going all the way up and down. And if something's not right, all you have to do is go into your programming through the radio and adjust the endpoints. You can also servo balance with the Jeti, so that way they match all the way through. But I'm not worried about through the middle because I go through there so quick. I'm more concerned with the complete upper ends when you're really trying to do tight maneuvers and stuff. But otherwise, we're going to make sure all of our throws are set up right. Everything is going to be set by the book for the beginning. Our CG is pretty good. As far as we go into high rates for ailerons, I mean, there's some throw there, guys. So I can't wait. Super excited with this thing, but let's fine tune and set all of our throws again. We're going to use this little miracle gauge. We got this thing. This measures in degrees. We got this off of Amazon for a couple bucks. Works really well. Next, we're going to set up the gyro. Thanks to Harry Curzon, he makes this stuff easy. I went ahead and I wrote down all my steps. I do this because I don't do it often enough to remember all the steps. But we're going to go ahead, get this thing programmed, set up. We're going to have a gyro on-off switch, and then we're going to have 3 gains and then the ability to dial them in with the knob. Let's do it. All right, guys, now that we've finished the installation, let's check out everything on the inside. So again, we are running a spot-on RC arm there. These are all King Max digital servos, 3511s all the way throughout, guys. 7.4 volt systems. These things are putting out over 600 inch-ounces of torque. Again, I picked those up at Gator-Rc. If you're looking for, if you will, a good quality budget-minded servo, there you go. I use them in all my Seagulls models planes, and they've all held up phenomenally well. The downside, they claim they're programmable. I found it almost impossible to find a programmer to do it. And I just opted to run everything separate into the receiver and then program it through there. But anyway, those surfaces move with authority. So we're running the Jeti Rex 10 assist receiver, and we're running the 900 NG 900 megahertz backup. So 2.4, that'll automatically kick over to there should there be a problem. We're running a ignition kill. So I can't tell you how important that is. I can shut it off from the radio should I have a throttle failure of any kind. I like to put all my stuff in here because I don't mind pulling a canopy on and off. I just like a cleaner looking plane on the outside. We're running the redundant battery backup system. Fueler valve is up there. Running 2S 2200 packs, so a total 4400 milliamps. The Seacraft round tank, I opted for the manual choke on this one instead of using the servo up front. And then we are running a RPM sensor and 2 temp sensors for the engine, so I'll know what temperature those are. And then we have our keyed, if you will, switch to turn on and off. And then you can see the LED right there for, the LED right there is for, so now I know that engine is hot and ready to fire. But otherwise, I think this thing turned out awesome on the inside. DA50 for power that my wife won at the raffle. And I'll show you the canopy. So I guess the name of this plane is going to be Lucky. All right, so how cool was that? We incorporated that Lucky ticket into Lucky. And the canister there I wound up getting from Desert Aircraft to fit that engine. But otherwise, we're made and ready. Let's get going. All right, guys, and that wraps up this portion of the build series. If there was something here that piqued your interest or that you liked, do me a favor, head on over to Gator-Rc and check them out at www.gator-rc.com. They have a huge line of balsa ARFs and tons of accessories to go along with them. So with that being said, it's Brendan here at Just Plain Crazy. If you liked it, smash that thumbs up button. It helps out the channel a lot. Comment down below if there's a project you're starting or if they carry a plane that you're interested in. I'd actually be really interested to know what you guys like. With that being said, like, share, subscribe, and all that cool stuff that goes along with that. I hope you join me again for the rest of this video series and more down the road. So with that being said, happy flights, guys. Peace out.